please welcome to the stage Llew Jury.
It's great to be here. It's quite humbling doing this after being in the entrepreneurial game for 20 years and in this business, Reload, for 12. And there was so many things I could have talked about tonight to try and give you some words of wisdom, but I didn't want to bombard you and bore you because you probably want to get to the bar. So I thought I'd summarise it, and if there's anything else, I will be at the bar later on and you can just pick my brains. Or you can pick some of the staff brains, the former staff, some of our partners, some of my accelerator guys as well. So they know me pretty well as well. So let's get into it. So I'm Llew, and my Twitter sign is @Reloader if you want to do some tweeting. My entrepreneurship game started when I was about 12. I realised when I was 12 years old, living in the Adelaide Hills, when I was, unfortunately born in Adelaide. It's a great place if you like wine, and luckily I lived there. And I said to my parents at 12, I'd like to get my licence, even though I couldn't, and go and drive a touring bus around the Adelaide Hills to take people from wineries, because I had a friend who owned a winery. And they said, do you realise you're 12 years old? And the first lesson was that actually you've got to actually know your limitations. So I said, well, you can buy the bus and you can drive it. And they said, well, we don't have any money, we're paying for your school fees. So, you're going to have to wind that one up. But anyway, I did a business plan, which was, instead of drawing BMX bikes in the 80s, I was drawing the sides of buses and putting my decals on there and all that. So early on, I thought, hang on, this entrepreneurship thing is going to go somewhere. So basically, where Reload began goes back a little bit further than the house you see there, which is in Indooroopilly. It goes back to about late 98, so 20 years, and early 1999. My brother and I were living in Canberra at the time, and my brother and I came up here, stole my father's computer, came up here, and we sat on a milk crate in a house in Carmody Road in St Lucia. He was doing his honours and about to do his PhD, and I said, let's set up a web company. And we set up a web design company called Alfresco. Now, Alfresco went on 7 years to the day to actually go and sell to John Singleton and the SDW group. So we went from a start-up on a milk crate with a stolen computer from our father to an exit to an ASX, and we got bought out by an ASX, and that was a real scale-up lesson. The biggest lesson I had from that was the time back then you had to put in a modem line, and it was 28 kilobytes per second. Some of the old guys like me with no hair would remember these days, and the old sign that you used to have to get, the old sound. And the Telstra guy rocked up and said, lads, where's your trench? And we didn't have a trench. Going to the second bedroom, there's about 20 people living in this share house in St Lucia. I lived in a broom cupboard, lived on tuna, rice and apples. That was it. We went next door to these American girls and borrowed their plastic spoon, and we dug a trench. It was meant to be 60 centimetres deep, but it was about that deep, and we ran the phone line, the copper line, into the business, and it got us started. So there was a lot of hustle going on, a lot of these things, just very raw days. And before I did Reload and set it up at my house, I said to my wife when I exited, and I had a 2-year period of restraint, I said, I'm not going to build a company that's going to have lots and lots of people again. It's just going to be me and our son at home. And today, we're now 80 staff and in 4 countries. So she keeps reminding me of that every month. And it started underneath that stairwell. And every reloader that starts at Reload sees that picture. It's really important to know where you've come from and, of course, where you're going. But everybody understands that that little room, which I tiled myself in 2006, and I got a guy called Craig in. He was 19 at the time. And I said, let's build a business. And the story and the conversation is the opening line on our 7-page document in our recruitment policy and our hiring policy. So Reload began there. 2008, it kicked off. 2 years to the day that my restraint finished. And Reload basically started as an SEO company. So we started doing SEO, and we invented some packages, gold, silver and bronze, all you can eat, open buffet, get some SEO into your first page guaranteed. In fact, not even first page is guaranteed, it was #1 guaranteed. Because you could walk in there in the afternoon, type in a few keywords into the search engine and get your client site ranking #1 by the next morning. It was so good, so easy. But the big point of difference, everybody was doing that. There's about 12 of us in the game in Brisbane back then. And that's 12 companies. There was Craig and I and about 11 other companies. What we did differently from day one, we basically set it up with a real customer-centric attitude. Rather than going full-on tech, we went customer-focused. And that was the big point of difference that allowed us to launch really quickly. The other thing we did was we just sold everything. We threw it against the wall and we saw what stuck, and then we picked off those important services that were really the ones that were starting to increase market share and build the profit. So I used to rock in and go, I've just sold some Google AdWords, and Craig would say, what's Google AdWords? I'll go away and learn it, and by the next morning we'd have a Google AdWords campaign out. So there's the sort of things you're doing when you're building a business and you've got no idea what you're doing. So it started under Reload, and then in 2011 it moved to our offices, which are behind Newstead Brewing in Milton. So if you know Newstead, we actually helped them get the application. Michael sort of emailed me and said, can you write me a letter? And I said, you bet I can, as long as you give us an account. And now all the staff go to Newstead Brewing. So we've been there since 2011. We signed the lease the day after the floods. So we saw the fireys going down our road in a tinny. It was next to behind the rugby league headquarters in Milton there. Suncorp was about 20 metres underwater, and ours was the only one that didn't get flooded, so we signed the lease. It was pretty good because the landlord was a bit worried. But we've been there. We've now got 1,000 square metres. About 40 people work there, and it's a great place. So Reload then decided to do something that everybody bucked the trend, and a bit like we heard before, why are you doing that? And big questions from people. Why don't you go to Sydney and Melbourne? Because Sydney and Melbourne's, this tall poppy thing going on with Brisbane, and we said Brisbane's actually better than Sydney and Melbourne. So we're going to go to London. Bugger that. We're going to go to London. Now, remembering that this is the days back in even 2010 that grants really didn't exist. You had the odd grant that could fly you up business class to Asia to go and do something, but there was none of this $400 million advanced Queensland was floating around or anything like that. So these are the days, and we've really grown up with times where there's been no handouts. So we've had to do it all ourselves. And we said, right, well, let's go to London, let's bootstrap London. And let's just absorb the difference of the foreign exchange, and let's go over there and let's give it a crack. And now London has 18 staff. And London has actually now become a really key part of what I'm going to talk about next, which is about the customer journey that's actually been led by the people. Great little office in the leather market just behind the Shard, if you know that area. So the reason why Reload's done what it has done is not because of me. I'm just a spokesman of why it's actually happened. It's actually all about the attitude of the people. About 2010, 2011, we had people that had great ability, but they didn't have a great attitude. And so what we did, we flipped it on our head. We basically said, let's hire for attitude, and then let's train them up. And that today is still extremely relevant because it has allowed me to do what I'm doing as chair of Reload. So I'm no longer in the day-to-day because of those people. And that's allowed me to actually go and do some other things and actually spend more time with my family, which is why we're all doing this. What it means to be a reloader. So I asked a few of the staff, and there's a few here that could probably jump up and give you half an hour each because they love being reloaders, and even former reloaders love being reloaders, and they're very proud, which is we love to create an alumni. But what it means to be a reloader is actually it's all about the values of the business, and it's all about why they actually get up in the morning. I want to answer this question in about 2 slides' time, because the real reason that, as I said, the business is going so well and the business continues to grow is not because the entrepreneur or the founder is there. It's actually because these guys own the business. These guys are actually the ones that are actually empowered to achieve their goals through professional development, but also love the client. And so it's a very client-centric area. So I got asked by my general manager many years ago, why do you do this, Llew? And I said it's all about opportunities. And if you want to break it down, the opportunities are the best thing that puts a smile on my face is when I see my staff buying a house or having kids or going on big 4-week holidays or month-long holidays. It's something that it's about creating opportunities, because if my staff are happy, they're going to be creating opportunities for our clients. They're also going to be retained, and they're going to be actually, they're going to have a purpose for what they do. The values of the business, there's a number of values, and what you're seeing here is 6 values. There's actually 7 values of the business. And I've only got 5 minutes left, so what I'm going to do is really focus on one value on the next screen, which is, if you remember, the reason why I'm here as chair is because they actually run the company. But before we get to that, a couple of other key values that I see at the sink when people aren't washing dishes. They actually put the values in little post-it notes on the sink today, I saw some. When they're actually celebrating wins, they're tied into one of the values. And by the way, when we did the values, we were about 7 years old. So none of this early startup, we're going to do the purpose, we're going to do the values, the Simon Sinek why. In fact, the Simon Sinek why didn't even exist, a bit like our grants. So we had to ratchet in values into a company that was already, 40, 50 staff. And what we did was we consulted. We consulted and engaged. And it wasn't the directors that did the values. It wasn't the management. It was the staff. We started with the UK office and we worked our way back. And everybody came up with the values, which was really that middle one there about the collective power of Reload. We're all in this together, and it's very much the collective power. The other one that I really like on this one is about fuel your ambition with resilience. Having that conversation, and I was also one in the past that probably overpromised a bit. Day 2, you could be a manager one day. Do you want a pay rise? Because I really want to keep you. Basically, we had to tone that down a bit because you couldn't afford it. The profit's gone, and you needed to actually give them a plan, and also you have a plan and work towards that plan. So overpromising, but that's fuel ambition with resilience. Have some resilience that we're going to get there one day, and then you'll be able to travel to the UK office and have the party of your life during Croatia Boat Week. This is the top one that I absolutely love. And I asked a few reloaders before I came yesterday and the day before, what is the number one? And our marketing guy, Darcy, said, it's act like an owner. He said, this is the thing that gets us out of bed. Lou, this is the reason you're not in the business, because everybody in this organisation is acting like an owner. And that's not acting like an owner throwing their weight around and firing clients and hiring staff and all that. It's actually much more self-sustaining. It just seems to work. And so it's about autonomy. It's about giving people that autonomy. Now, if you had have asked me a couple of years ago when I had the alfresco business, I hadn't learned that you actually do this. You actually had to act like an owner yourself. Because that's the I feel a bit old now, but that's where I've come from. I'm a Gen Xer, right? So you had to be the boss and you had to be the owner and you've got to show the way, and that's what leadership is. But these days, a lot of self-insight. Now, the guy that taught me this is my business partner, Craig. He's 14 years younger than me, and if you've got yin and yang, he's the yin and I'm the yang, or I'm the yang and he's the yin, whatever. So basically, Craig taught me a lot of insight without actually telling me, Mr. Jury, you're actually being a bit of an arse at the moment. He actually, in a very subtle way, got me to realise that everybody can actually be like an owner. So listen to people, even if they're a bit younger than you. One of the proudest moments of my whole company was, this is a photo I took. It's about 4,200 metres up. That's Mount Marapu, or Meru, in Kenya. I'm on Kilimanjaro, 2014, and I'm about day 5 into a 7-day expedition. And I thought it was pretty good. I got to the top, I was pretty good. 6,000 metres, there was 7 others. Got down, and I got a message, because there's no signal up there, funnily enough. My proudest thing, I was proud for about 22 hours. I've just climbed a mountain. I'm feeling pretty good. I've conquered the world, well, Africa. I've got 6 other mountains. It's pretty small. And I got a message saying this: you've just won the Customer Service Award for Australia. And this thing actually kicked in, that it's not about what you're doing as a founder. It's about what your strategy is and what you're actually doing to encourage people. I'm not getting emotional. I'm actually trying to get rid of a cough. Just like John, I'm kind of emotional. But anyway, it's good to reflect. This is why you do it, isn't it, John? Right. I actually got to this mountain, thought it was pretty good for about 22 hours, got down, and they said, mate, you've just won a Customer Service Award. Now, back to 2011, Craig goes, I think everybody else in the SEO game is trying to go too technical. So I think they're trying to out-tech each other. So if you've ever seen that little pyramid, it's at the top, product excellence. On the side, it's operational efficiency, and then on the other side, it's custom intimacy. And we decided in 2011 to go after custom intimacy. And that meant it's better than customer service. So what happened was, in 2014, we won this award, which only after 3 years of doing this strategy, which was the number one customer service company in Queensland, the number one customer service small business in Australia, and then we won best of the best customer service business in the whole of Australia. So we won 3 awards. And what that basically said was, you've beaten IINet, you've beaten Amex, you've beaten Melbourne Airports, because you've picked a strategy and you've just gone with it. And obviously you're so passionate about it and everybody's on for the ride. Well done, and it's been a reward. Now, I could have put up heaps of awards. We got lots of the BRWs and the startups and this and Lord Mayor's Business Awards and all that sort of stuff, but this is the most proud award because we're a digital agency and we won a customer service award. And we couldn't have done it without the people. So, I've got no time left. 3 tips. First one, business is all about relationships, especially in Australia. In Italy, it's about creativity. Japan and Germany, it's about operational efficiency. America, it's about how big you are and how you're hitting the market and how you're hustling. In Australia, the number one thing is about relationships. We are great people and we love relationships, so get out there. Lots of coffees. Don't build your own software. I reckon it's close to 300,000 that I lost in terms of trying to build it in my own office in India, then my own office in Manila, trying to do Ruby on Rails and all this cool stuff. And don't do it. So, have Slack and all those other tools. I'll give you the full rundown at the bar. Don't build your own software. There's so much cool software out there. Don't do it. Right, now, this is one of those big emotional ones. I used to go, you're bloody leaving my business. I'm over you. Like, you're not going for the ride with us. Therefore, you can, I'm not going to unfriend you on Facebook, but, I reckon that was about 10 years ago, maybe, something like that. But in my last business, Craig taught me to realise this one. He said, let's turn everybody into an alumni. It's a bit like advocacy. It's a bit like TripAdvisor. If everybody's out there saying, actually, they were good people, he was a good bloke, and they're really nice, you should actually go with them. We now run the Shopify Meetup for Australia. We run the Shopify Meetups in the UK. 4 of our staff are with Shopify. We've never been closer to Shopify. 4 of our ex-staff, that is. They're all senior managers, great people. We hang out at weddings together. We're all great mates. Our ex-general manager, who was with us for 7 years, he's a great mate. Efren is in the crowd as well. Basically, what we've done is create an alumni. So think of that even when you're a young startup as well. And that's it. And that's me. So, thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Llew.